Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 291 of the Mighty Whites podcast. I'm Jack, as always, joined by Casey.
Now then,
Things good, mate?
yeah, not too bad. How about you?
Yeah, all good. My little girl has chicken pox, but she is doing fine. Other than that, everything is good. It was very, very, very comfortable. Leeds 2, Derby 0. I'm not sure if Leeds ever got out of second gear.
I'm not sure if Derby ever got out of their half.
Yeah, it was a really... I reckon that it was one of our least creative games in a sense, but we were 2-0 up and cruising to such an extent that it didn't really matter. I suppose the main thing to talk about before the goals is Junior Firpo went off injured after 20 minutes, was replaced by Max Verber. I don't know if you've seen from a press conference, but Firpo is out to 6 weeks, hamstring injury.
I mean, bearing in mind we were talking about whether he would make it or not for this one, it seems a very odd decision now to.
It does apparently, because that was my first thought and what I said in the ground at the time. Apparently, he was struggling with a foot injury before the game, and then, as unrelated, done his hamstring. So, I mean, it was my first thought as well. Why have we even chanced him for this game? But sounds like it might have been a bit more unlucky than that.
Yeah.
I will also mention now, just while we're on the subject, that Jayden Bogle is also struggling with an injury. And from the way Farker was talking, he was saying, oh, well, it'll be a late decision, but he made it sound like he wasn't going to play against Middlesbrough.
Yeah. It'll be an interesting one. I mean, I'm trying to think who goes in at right back now.
Well, Sam Byram is apparently fit again. So I would think Byram right back, Verber left back, unless the lesser spotted Isaac Schmidt is suddenly
never
allowed to play, but I can't see it. But yeah, back to the game itself. Leeds didn't create loads, but obviously created a lot more than Derby. I think Derby's XG at full time was, I think I read somewhere that it was 0.08.
I mean, wouldn't surprise me. It was a team that they set out in a deep 5-4-1, didn't engage until about Elland Road had entered their half of the centre circle. It was I think there was a little bit of interest at the start as well, how the weather would play a factor into it, because I know they hit a few goal kicks that were one bounce and back with Melier in the first half. But they didn't really seem to use the wind to cause any problems for Leeds either.
No, they were just clearing the ball. There was like one decent ball over the top that Yates got onto, but like it led to absolutely nothing. There was a penalty appeal in the sense that the Derby fans appealed for it, but Yates didn't even appeal for it. Like he knew it wasn't. Leeds, the only disappointing I had with the wind is Leeds probably could have played the ball in behind a bit more because the wind would have held it up. But I think that they just didn't need to, so they didn't really go for it. Joe Rodon missed a very good chance for a header from a corner, and then not long after, Joe Rodon scored his first goal for Leeds with a header from a corner. I had in my head that it was his first career goal, but I was wrong. He scored one on loan at Oran. That I didn't know about, but yeah. So at 27, he's got his second career goal.
I always forget that he's a cultured centre back.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind one of the big things that you were saying in the last podcast was the size of the Derby team and their potential threat from set pieces, and Joe Rodon just had a lot of space for that header.
Yeah, and the one he missed was I haven't actually seen it back because they haven't put the one he missed in the highlights package. But from in the ground, that looked like an even easier chance, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I assume the first miss is just because he doesn't expect to win headers from a Leeds corner.
Yeah, I mean, he gets his head on a few. He just never gets anywhere near. I don't have Instagram, but I have seen the screenshot going around. Like, he's put up a picture from him scoring the goal, and all the comments underneath are just the Leeds team taking the piss out of him, saying about time, well done 50p Ed, all of those sorts of things. But yeah, it was good to see him get a goal. Nice to see him get off the mark, and I thought he had a good game right through. A thing that was quite good is a lot of the sort of build-up work that Strauch does. Roden seemed better at it on the right-hand side than he normally is in this game. He seemed to step out well and play good passes with Bogle and James getting forward well. If anything was disappointing, actually, it was Bogle and Dan James on the ball. They got into good positions, and by no means did either of them have a bad game. But they had some chances to play passes in good areas where they not only would they turn down, like the aggressive pass was also the easier pass, and they would turn it down and go inside. And it wasn't loads of times, but it happened enough for it to be noticeable and frustrating. But that was probably the only real disappointment, I would say, in the entire thing.
Yeah. No, like as I said, they weren't really in the mood for engaging Leeds at all, really. So it did give Roden and Strauch a bit of license to sort of wander into their half and look, to play those balls in. It was one of those teams that turned up, and outside of we need to defend, I didn't really see much else of a plan to them. There wasn't any idea of a counter-attacking plan or...
No, the only difference between these and Plymouth was these played a flat-back 5 instead of Plymouth, who played a flat-back 6.
Yeah.
But it was the exact same game. I mean, Derby looked marginally better than Plymouth, but that's really, really not saying a lot. Leeds made it 2 just before half-time, and it was a proper, that's the game. Dan James cuts inside the ball, plays it into Brendan Aronson, pull back. I can't remember who was actually going for the shot. Might have even been Bogle running in on it, but the defender got there first and knocked it away. To, at the far post, some movement that looked just like Joel Piroux and a finish that looked just like Joel Piroux, to the extent that I wasn't sure who scored, and the people around me were pretty convinced it was Joel Piroux from the stand-upper, because it was such a Joel Piroux proper centre-forwards goal. But no, Max Verber, good movement, good finish.
I always thought he was a quality player. Always liked him, always rated him. Glad to see him and Aronson linking up.
Yeah.
The traitorous bastards come by. Yeah, it's one of those things. Yeah, I don't know if Junior Firpo would be popping up for that goal.
Like, I mean, he does like to get in the box.
I know he likes
to
get in the box.
He doesn't tend to come inside.
Yeah, like it's an odd one, but as I said, going into half time when they went back to Beckford in the studio, I think you could have seen this result, this score coming. I don't think you'd have predicted both the goal scorers.
No.
If anyone did, well done.
Yeah, you'd have got pretty decent odds, especially seeing as Max Verber wasn't playing.
Yeah.
At the start. I did say, I think it was Joe Donahue that put on Twitter, Verber from an Aronson cross. Didn't think I'd be saying that 12 months ago. The sort of most interesting things with the team selection, one, Ampadu did make the bench, which is great to see. And also not playing him was great to see, given the situation. And
everyone around him seemed really happy to have Ethan Ampadu there. Like when the camera was basically pointing at him before the game, and it's just all the other subs just smiling and pushing it.
Yeah.
I was, look, Ethan's back. How good is that? Look at him. Yeah. And I think you heard quite a loud applause when he first went out to warm up as well.
Yeah, it's definitely good to have him back involved because, as good as the Rothwell Tanaka midfield has been excellent, but Ampadu is still probably... I mean, he's definitely someone who should be in the 11, put it that way.
I mean, I think the obvious solution to this now is that Ampadu slots in at 10.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to break up Rothwell and Tanaka. I'm really happy with how that's going. Ampadu in behind, so he gets more chances to put shots over the crossbar.
You see, what you want is the real Galaxy brain, and that's Ampadu and Tanaka, and that's Rothwell and Tanaka, Peru at 10, and Ampadu up front for pressing. That's what you really need. The other thing that caught me by surprise, we both thought that Nonto was going to start, and when I saw he wasn't starting, I was very surprised. But I hadn't realised that game was the cut-off for 5 yellows getting a suspension, and Nonto's on 4. So to be fair to Daniel Farker, I think that was just really good management. Like, Roden was also on 4, but I think he trusts him a bit more not to get a stupid yellow. Because Roden is capable of getting a stupid yellow, but Nonto loves it.
he loves a little pullback, doesn't he? When he's been done, just grabbing someone and going, no, not you.
Yeah, he loves a needless foul. He loves a shout at the referee. He loves throwing his arms up. It was good management from Farker. And like, Solomon was just fine on the left. He didn't do it particularly great. Say James was a bit frustrating, but we were more than good enough for this. And that it's really good to get them through on 4 yellows. The only really good chance in the second half was Joe Peru got ball in the box after Leeds won it high up the pitch. I think Tanaka won it back. And he sort of went low with his right foot. And it was actually quite a good finish, actually. I reckon it'd go in most of the time. But Zetterstrom, that's his name. I can't remember their keeper's name. Made a really good save to tip it just wide. Then that was basically so little happened in the second half. But it wasn't like the Watford game when nothing happened and it got a bit nervy. It was just nothing happened and everyone was fine with that. The atmosphere really quietened off in the second half, but it was, again, because there was zero jeopardy whatsoever.
Just chatting about weekend plans at that point. Then aren't you? Like, game's gone. You head up. Oh, we're going to. Oh no, that's broken down. So, whereabouts are you meeting in town then? Yeah, that's good. I've been there. But it's one of those things. Once the game gets that sort of stage, and as you said, Derby just offered no threat whatsoever, which is always, I say, disappointing in as much. I say this more from the neutral perspective. There's part of you just thinks, go on, have a little go now. You're 2-0 down. You might as well have a bit of a go now.
Well, we were all saying, well, they'll come out a bit now. They just didn't. No, we'll defend this 2-0 defeat.
We'll save our legs.
Yeah. The main debate in the stand was the same one that was on Twitter for man of the match, whether it was Roden or Rothwell. I would have gone Rothwell of the two, but I'd be fat. But either was a perfectly reasonable shout.
Yeah, I was probably leaning towards Joe Rothwell as well. It is going to be a very tough decision, I think, at some point when Ampadu does come back into the starting lineup, because those two have played so well together. I do think as that happens, I think the shouts will get louder and louder for Rothwell at 10.
That is what I think will happen at least once. I think it'll happen, and then we'll see what happens, because Rothwell. I don't know why, with the confidence he's got at the minute, he doesn't seem to tear ass around as much as Aronson does, but he seems to have a bit more in his legs than he did in the first few weeks of the season. So I don't think the drop off in pressing will be that big. I don't really fancy the idea of Rothwell 10 and Peru as 9 out of possession. But it depends who you're playing. Like, if you're playing a game like the one we've just played against Derby, would be absolutely fine because you don't need to do any pressing, really. Whereas against Middlesbrough, that is probably not going to be the case. So Middlesbrough tomorrow night.
We'll be entertained.
And hopefully we'll see an execution, what a sight, tomorrow night. But no, from what I have seen this season, other than us, I think these are the best team in the league. Which I know I know that they're fifth and like 7 points behind us and 8 behind Sheffield United. But I think at their best, they're a really, really good team.
I mean, it's a weird one under Carrick because obviously he had that fantastic run when he first came in. And then last season, they were fits and spurts where they would play some really nice football and then just drop off. And were probably a bit disappointing. And then a bit slow starting off this season, but they're up to 5th now, I think. And they're kind of back to where they were. But he does have them playing some decent. I mean, I'm putting it all in the giving all the credit to the mastermind behind the scenes, the Brian Kidd of proceedings, and I think that's Johnny Woodgate. But
well, yeah, obviously, ably assisted by Luke Haley.
Yeah, and Johnny Howson.
And Johnny Howson. I will say it says a lot about how much I expect Johnny Howson to be involved in that I haven't noted his name down. I've just realised.
No, I mean, let's have a look at it. He is 36.
Yeah.
He will be 37 at the end of the season. He is probably...
Just think about what an old man Johnny Howson is now. Just remember that and then realise that he's basically the same age as us.
Oh, God. He's only 2 years above me at school, it's... Yeah. It's weird now looking at the Middlesbrough team because it seemed like for the longest time it never really changed all that much. But I think they've had a bit of turnover now, and Carrick's been kind of getting the squad as he wants it. So they're sort of looking more just different now. You see, like some of the players in their squad are still there, but they're just dropping off a bit. Matt Clark is still there.
Yeah, still there, but doesn't seem to play as much.
Was it Matt Clark that scored against us in the League Cup?
I honestly, I know it was free, but I have got a note here that says they battered us in the League Cup, but given the teams that we put out, I won't read too much into it, which I still think is right. But the only goal I can remember of theirs is Dykesteel scored one, didn't he?
Yeah.
But I actually can't remember who the other goals were.
Bergzorg and Coburn.
Yeah.
I think it was Coburn that was on his way out at the time as well.
Yeah. Well, Delano Bergzorg, he probably won't start this, I don't think, but he did start against Burnley in the last game, so maybe he will. Their front four, to me, not only looks really good, but looks good and has depth. Because the Latte Laff is one of the best strikers in the league. And Tommy Conway behind him is also very good as an option. Probably Riley McGree is expected to play on the left, and he's pretty good, but Bergzorg could as well. Finn Azaz at number 10 is really good and consistently creating loads of chances and having plenty of efforts himself. And then Ben Doak on loan from Liverpool on the right, who, by all accounts, in the last few games has just been ripping fullbacks to shreds. And they've also got that Isaiah Jones, who's rapid, haven't they, as like another option on that side. Doak, I must admit, I was thinking before the press before Saturday, Doak versus Firpo was a bit scary. And I don't know if Doak v Verba makes me feel any better, to be honest. I think it'll probably be a little bit harder to beat Verba, but once he does, I can't see Verba having any shot at staying anywhere near him.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to make the most of being in possession, because I think it's a weird game, this, because they really like to have lots of the ball. We really like to have lots of the ball. And I think against Middlesbrough, our best chances would be to let them have the ball and counter. But I think their best chances would be to let us have the ball and counter. So I'm really not sure how this is going to go. Other than, and this is the kiss of death, I can't see this not being a high-scoring game.
Well, I mean, last was it 4-3 last season?
Last season, we beat them 3-2 at Elland Road and 4-3 at the Riverside.
Yeah, I mean, the game at the Riverside was bizarre. in as much as...
That was at the end of the season when we were falling to bits, and we kind of fell to bits in that game, just scored a load of goals.
Oh, we could not defend at all. There was not a defensive ounce of strength in that team whatsoever. But yeah, we fortunately kept scoring. Yeah, I expect this to be two teams who will actually both try and play their style of football, which is always quite nice in the Championship.
Yeah, I know that a lot of the better teams have come to Elland Road and changed the way they play. I don't think Middlesbrough will.
No, and I know, like I'm looking here at the team from the League Cup game. It's the same, but it's different. It's weird. Patrick Bamford started that game.
Yeah.
And I have no memory of that. Joffrey started that game as well. And
I do remember that because I remember he really wasn't at the races, and I got very sad.
Yeah. Rothwell and Ampadu in the middle. Verba started, and he was dreadful.
And he had an awful game.
Yeah. Sam Byron played. Because essentially we brought on the rest of the first team.
Yeah, and the other thing was, like, Georgie came on for like the last 10 minutes, but he was already going, and we didn't know yet.
Yeah.
The news broke that night, which made me get over getting hammered in the League Cup. And not that I really gave a shit anyway, but it made me get over it really quick because I was too busy being really sad about something else.
Yeah. And Luke Ayling came on as well.
Yeah.
Johnny Howson started at centre-back.
And wasn't troubled, which I think says a lot. In middle midfield, it's expected to be Dan Barlaser, who I will always point out, who ran my Accrington Stanley midfield on FM. And Hayden Hackney, who I know less about, but apparently this was, again, something that it happens a lot when we do a podcast on like an afternoon like this. I had the All Stats Aren't Way podcast on in the background while I was working earlier. And they mentioned that he has like the most passes in the final third in the league by a mile. So he tends to get quite far forward. Because I was thinking that maybe the only thing that they might do is play a slightly more conservative central midfield pair. But they might just tell Hackney not to get forward quite as much. Because both the fullbacks probably will. It's expected to be Neto Borges at left back, who I don't know much about, but people say is very good. And Anthony Dijksteel at right back, who isn't, from what I've seen of him, he isn't a consistent player. He's a bit up and down with his form, but when he plays well, he's really good. And by all accounts, he had a great game against Burnley. So again, him and Ben Doak on the same side kind of scares me. And I don't think for a second we'll do this, but I did hear someone make an argument for playing Dan James on the left in this game in order to have someone with a bit more defensive work rate on that side to help out Verba against those two together, which I don't think we'll do. I think that we'll rely on having enough of the ball to control the game. But I don't think it's the worst idea I've ever heard.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose one of the strengths of our midfield at the moment is we do sort of have the legs to have one of them come across to help cover that area as well. Typically Tanaka, who just...
Yeah, I was going to say, you'd think it'd be Tanaka's job, wouldn't you?
Yeah. And sort of do the tidying up there. But like I say, it'll be an interesting one to see next. Obviously, we said Solomon and James started the last one. Whether we now see Nonto come back in, does he... do we go back to Nonto on the right and sticking with Solomon? Could this be the night Ramazani starts?
I don't think it'll be Ramazani just yet. I think that it'll be Nonto left, James right for this. Nonto, because I just think he's on his day, probably still he's the best player still at this point. And Dan James, because this might be one of the only games at Elland Road this season where there's actually some space in behind.
Yeah.
So I think James will stay in for that. The other option is that they might play Luke Ayling at left back, and they've done that a few times and sort of had him tuck inside a bit, and that is an option for them if they did want to play slightly more conservatively. But I'm not expecting them to do it. I think they'll just go. I think they'll look at Leeds and go, if we try and change our game to defend, I think that they'd expect our quality to get as a result. Whereas if they go toe-to-toe with us, they might beat us. If they play well and we don't, then they'll beat us. So, I mean, like, it's the two top-scoring teams in the league, and I believe that their actual, like, underlying numbers are even better than ours in attack, not in defence. I mean, their recent results, they got beat 1-0 at Blackburn like we did, but the run of games to beat QPR 4-1, Luton 5-1, Oxford 6-2, Middlesbrough, and then Middlesbrough beat Hull 3-1. And then a 1-1 draw away at Burnley, which ain't a bad result at all. So really good week.
Yeah, like I say, it's two teams in good form coming into this, to be fair. Like I say, I think there's a good chance both teams are getting a couple of goals here. But it will be it is nice when you think you go into a game going, I think Dan James will have a bit of room in behind. I do think we'll have a bit of space to play in because they're actually going to go for this.
Yeah.
They are a good team, and Carrick is doing a decent job there. And like I say, I think the recruitment over the last sort of 18 months for them has been very good.
Finn Azaz looked really good, and he was because he was on loan at Plymouth, wasn't he, from Villa, playing really well. And then Middlesbrough just bid for him, so they recalled him from the loan and sold him. I don't think he's got quite the physical. He hasn't quite got the physical ability to do this, but he seems like it's a bit like the way that Morgan Rogers was when he went to Middlesbrough. Just hit the ground running, and it will probably get him a move back up the leagues relatively soon.
Yeah, I mean, just looking like Finn Azaz looking this season, 6 goals and 7 assists in 18 games is solid.
Yeah, and it's what then early in the season they were missing loads of chances as well, which is why they did drop down a little bit. But that's what happened to them last season. They had a load of games where they should have won and didn't. And they started like that this season, but it seems like they've picked up. Obviously, we mentioned Firpo is out, Bogle's probably out. So, but Byram's available. So I'm thinking Byram right back, Verba left back, Roden and Strauch, Melier in goal. Do you think he takes a chance on Ampadu?
No, I don't think this is the game to do it. So someone trying to get back up to match speed, I don't think Middlesbrough is the team to do it against. I think you're better off doing that against a team who are probably going to sit a bit deeper. And again, you're coming off a run where Tanaka seems to be man of the match nigh on every other game at this point, and Rothwell was man of the match in the last game. Yeah. So it'd be a very tough call dropping either one of them, and I don't think I can't see him dropping Aronson for this one at the moment either.
No, I mean, I think if Ampadu came in, it would be for Aronson with Rothwell moving forward. But I agree. I don't think he'll do it this, but I do think Ampadu will come on in this game, having not come on against Derby. We're thinking Rothwell and Tanaka. I still think it'll be Nonto, Aronson, James.
Yeah, I can see that. Like I say, it doesn't strike you as the sort of game for Solomon. Maybe 20, 25 minutes to go, but no, probably not from the start.
Yeah. And this game, they pass the ball around at the back a lot with the centre-backs. They'll need pressing. This wouldn't be the one where I start Peru. Now, whether we will or not is a different thing. Is it Joseph or Peru or Patrick Bamford, who, if he's fit, in theory, might actually be the best fit for this game?
He's definitely the best fit. I genuinely think he's the best fit generally for the system. But what we did is we've plumped to go with 2 strikers who combined still don't quite make up what Patrick Bamford brings to the team. I can see him sticking with Peru for this one. I think he'll probably go for a bit more experience up front. I think just to be a bit more wily. This is very much smacks of Peru putting up Haaland numbers of touches during a game. It's just whether he gets a chance or not.
Yeah, I'm going to take a shot. I may just be completely wrong, but I've just got this weird feeling that he's going to start Bamford. I don't know why. I've just thought it ever since I was on about the game with my dad, like after the game on Saturday. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, you know what, if it were me, I might start Bamford. And then although he didn't do it actually against Derby, he spent a lot of time talking up Bamford in the press conference before Derby. And I've just got this weird feeling that he's going to start him in this game.
Not quite.
And Mateo Joseph's going to be fucking fuming.
It's not quite the same, but it's David Sommer making his odd return away at Forest.
Forest, yeah.
Just
his legs still weren't working. And did he score as well still? It was like 4-1.
I can't remember if it was that game or if that was a different game where he got chucked on for some reason. But yeah, it's I'd love to see it. I genuinely, I'd be one of the happiest people if Patrick Bamford somehow just shook off all injuries now and just went, no, I'm the number 9 again. You fuck off, Joel. Like it, just in terms of what he brings to a team, especially in the Championship, the work rate, the decision making off the ball, it's neither Peru or Joseph can touch him in that regard.
No. The difference is, I think if you play Joseph every week, I think he could learn to do everything Bamford does, and I think he's a better finisher.
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, the finishing part, yeah, I agree with you on that. I just mean in terms of learning the role, he probably could, but it's one of the problems that this is the big football manager problem as well, where you're like, oh, I'd like to develop young players, but I'm also in a championship promotion race, and there are high expectations of me. Yeah. So I'm gonna play the £9 million striker instead.
Yeah.
But in theory, I'd like to give the other lad more game time.
If you think it's going to be Pirot and I think it's going to be Bamford, it's probably Joseph. So I've had the predictions have all come in. You got Derby bang on. 2-1 win. So you move up into second behind Connie. Connie jumped into a big lead by having like 3 correct scores in 5 games. Benny 3-2 win. Both Connie and Alex have gone for 2-1. It was quite prophetic with regards to what I was going to say when you said I reckon there'll be a couple of goals each in this one, because I've gone for a 2-2 draw.
Oh, I've gone for a 2-2 draw as well.
Yeah. And to be honest, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't take a point because it's a home game and you have to try and win all your home games. But if we drew with Middlesbrough, I wouldn't be furious. Unless, we go out, play really well and should batter them and then throw it away and get a draw, then I will be.
Yeah, look now. So you've got the Borough game. After that, it's Preston away and Oxford United at home. If you get a couple of decent results there to follow up on it, a win, a draw against Borough is a perfectly fine result.
Yeah, but we will be favourites, and rightly so. But I just really quite rate Middlesbrough from what I've seen of them. So I would be surprised if they're any lower. I'd be surprised if they're lower than 4th at the end of the season.
Yeah, like I say, they've pulled themselves up to 5th now, haven't they?
From what I've seen, I honestly think that from what I've seen, I think they're better than Sheffield United. I think they're better than Burnley, and I think they're better than Sunderland. They're just the issue is based on previous seasons under Carrick. They do have a little bit of an inconsistency problem, and that can always bite you in the ass.
Yeah, I mean, the Championship is very odd at the moment. You're looking at Sunderland, who got off to a really strong start and then just couldn't stop drawing games for a little while, then lost and won one. Sheffield United, who have got into really good form, and I have to say, having not seen a lot of them, I am just sat there for the most part going, really, them? Like,
yeah, it appears that their performance at Elland Road was not representative because they were crap at Elland Road.
Yeah. Burnley, who I think we discussed before, are getting the results, but no one is particularly impressed by Scott Parker and his methods. Like grinding out low-scoring wins. So
above them all in terms of funny is West Brom, who I believe have now, is it 10 of 11?
They've drawn 11 games this season.
Yeah, but I think they've drawn 10.
They've only lost 2.
Yeah, I think that they've either drawn 9 of the last 10 or 10 of their last 11.
Yeah. It's an astounding run of results.
Yeah. God, if you were doing a running acca just back in the draw every week.
So I just get 2-2, 1-1, 0-0, 2-2, 2-1 win, 0-0, 1-1, 0-0, 0-0, 1-1, 0-0, 1-0 defeat to Borough. Oh, God, that's a hell of a run.
Yeah. Just all over the shop. But yeah, so we're both going for a draw. Everyone else has got a win. This will be a very tough game. I agree with you that I don't think he will chance Ampadu. The reason that I even thought that he might is because of how good Finn Azaz is. And I thought he might want Ampadu in to sort of do a job on him a little bit. But it's probably a bit too soon. We will be back probably. My work schedule's a bit easier this week, so is Thursday any good to you? Because it was Friday better.
I should be good for either.
All right, cool. Well, probably one of Thursday or Friday is when we'll be back. So, yeah, that will do us. So, I've been Jack. See ya.